What's up, guys? My name is Christopher Landon Anthony Streeter, also known as Class. I am an independent professional wrestler, clinical psychologist, and one half of the greatest tag team of all time, the Pretty City Express. So this video, if you haven't watched the intro video I put out recently, this is video episode, whatever you want to call it, number 1 of the mental side of wrestling series. And so in this episode, I really wanted to talk about mental resilience and mental toughness and just kind of how to build those things, how they factor into wrestling and life in general. And so I think the way I'm going to approach it could get off track. We'll see. Hopefully I can keep it together. But how I'm thinking about approaching it now is talking about kind of what those terms mean to me, definitions, how one can build them, and then kind of going back in and relating that to wrestling and talking about why it's important in wrestling, life, really anything to have those skills. And so hopefully you come away with from this with a better idea of why it's important in wrestling, and then maybe how you can build this within your own life. And hopefully there's some tips, tricks I'll communicate in here that will help with that. If I gloss over something that is interesting, leave a comment and ask me to expand on that, either in the comments or video. Always happy to do that. I'm going to be trying to, like I said, keep myself on track, so there's a good chance I could gloss over a couple things that might be interesting. So just let me know and we can go through that. So mental toughness, resiliency. What is that? I think the way I like to kind of look at that is like resiliency, mental toughness. It's how do you face challenges how do you face challenges and exceed challenges while maintaining emotional stability and balance, and then even thriving within those challenges. And so I think there's going to be a lot of different interpretations and definitions of that. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. One of the main reasons from my experience this is really important in wrestling is going to be guaranteed full of failures. And what I mean by failures can include injuries. It can include a day at training that didn't go well. It can include a match that didn't go well, a promo that didn't go well, reaching out to promoters and not getting responses, not clicking with some of the boys, not having good chemistry with certain people, getting in a fight with a promoter. The list goes on and on and on. And wrestling in this way kind of reminds me of baseball, in the sense of, in baseball, if you succeed 3 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. Wrestling, I feel like the ratio is going to be very similar, right? So most of the time, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have things that you're not doing as well as you want to with, and you're going to have failures. And so by that token, how important is it to be able to have that mental resilience, that mental toughness to face those failures and do something about them and then grow from them, right? So it's so important. And I think outside of wrestling, I think it's fair to say that life can be a lot like that too. Like, we have periods where things go really well and we're just firing on all cylinders. And then there's that old saying, when it rains, it pours. And we all know that when the shit gets bad, it can get really bad and compound itself all at once. But if you can maintain a level of mental toughness, if you can maintain a level of resiliency and actually thrive through those, and actually keep a healthy mindset through those rough periods, they're not going to last as long. They're not going to affect you as much, and you're going to be able to then gain confidence in your ability to work through those. And so there's a lot of different ways I could go with this as far as wrestling. And just as an aside, what I'm talking about and relating it to wrestling is going to be purely based on my experience and what I've seen, and maybe firsthand, secondhand accounts, but a lot of it's just going to be based on my experience. And so one of the first things that comes to mind in wrestling specifically is there's a lot of people who would love to be a wrestler at any level, whether it's on your local indie show or whether it's main eventing WrestleMania. And there's very few people who actually get in the doors of a wrestling school and end up training. And then there's so much fewer that actually end up even having a match, doing something with it, and going to the highest level. Like it's like baseball again. Like the numbers just significantly decline the higher you go. And so where I've seen people without great mental toughness, great resiliency, really kind of fall on their face is getting into the wrestling school. And so maybe a lot of the other schools are like this. The one that I trained at before the Arizona Pro Wrestling Training Center opened this is where I saw a lot of this, is these kids and adults would come in with this like high level of passion, high level of excitement, and they knew in their minds they were going to be a wrestler because they had passion and they were excited. And sure enough, they come in day one, they start doing kind of some of the basic fundamental stuff, and guess what? Wrestling hurts. Physically, it hurts very, very much, especially when you're first starting. And time after time after time, these kids that came in with all this passion and all this motivation are gone after a day, a week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. That's like kind of the revolving door that I saw a lot of. And to me, maybe there's more to the story, but a lot of what that says is a lack of mental toughness and a lack of resiliency. They thought it was going to be a cakewalk to go through and get in there and be successful. And then they did their first roll, took their first bump, and they went, oh my God, this feels terrible. And if you're not someone who has kind of conditioned or calloused your mind to working through those challenges, then it's like system overload and you don't know what to do. And it can be really challenging and it can be really scary at the same time. But what happens if you then give into that, and then there's always going to be that little voice on your shoulder saying like, man, we don't need this. Man, these people they're not real wrestlers. They don't know what they're doing. Let's find somewhere else. There's always going to be that little voice giving you excuses. And that's the one that is going to be your worst enemy when it comes to mental toughness and resilience. You have to learn how to master that little voice and tell him to shut the hell up and keep going. And let's look beyond that. Let's say, you come into wrestling school, you can deal with the physicality of it, the pain, the soreness, the stiffness, especially in those early days, and you get some matches and then you finally get out on the road. And again, this is stuff that I've all seen, is some kids have had their first weekend on the road and you're gone all weekend, you're eating gas station food, you're not sleeping, you're taking shifts driving, and then they get back and it's like, all right, man, we going again this weekend, you coming? It's like, oh, I don't know, I think I have some family stuff, or I think I have to do this, or I think I have to do that. Being on the road, at least at the level that I've gotten to and where I've come from, is really challenging. You're away from your family, you're in usually a small car with a lot of other big sweaty dudes and girls, and you're doing this, you're driving 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, wrestling a match, and then getting right back in the car and going home. You're sweaty, you're tired, you're sore, you're stiff, you're cramped in, your shoulders are shrugged a lot of times, and it sucks for a lot of those reasons. Don't get me wrong, I love being on the road. That's one of my favorite things, spending time with the boys. But there's also that other side of it, is when if you see a car of wrestlers pull up to a gas station at 2 a.m, there's a very good chance that we're all going to be stumbling out and doing the old man grunt when we get out, because it's physically really challenging. And if you don't know how to kind of work through those and keep your eye on the prize, for lack of a better term, then it goes back to that again. You're going to be scared, you're going to be terrified, you're going to be overwhelmed, and this guy on your shoulder is going to be very convincing as to why you shouldn't do it or why this isn't for you. So with mental toughness and building resilience, it's, in my opinion, one of the cornerstones of what makes someone successful at any level in professional wrestling and in life as well. And I talked at the beginning about the losses that are going to come, and there's guaranteed going to be a lot of them. There's also going to be victories, right? You're gonna have a great match. You're gonna get someone to respond to you to ask you to come in for a tryout for the wrestling school. Maybe you pass the tryout. Maybe, you can stack up the wins all day long, but that, like, okay, great. You got these wins, but aren't you here because you think you can do that anyways? That's kind of what's supposed to happen. People are going to handle winning pretty well for the most part, but it's how you handle the failures, it's how you handle the losses, and what you do with that information, what you do next, is where that resiliency and that mental strength comes from. That's where you get grit, that's where you get resiliency, that's where you get growth. You're going to fail. What are you going to do with it? And to me, the biggest thing that's helped me in my life, and I use this in my practice and then obviously in wrestling too, is this idea that you always have a choice, right? And so let me back up. It's always important to focus on things within your control. If we're focusing on things outside of our control, then we're just kind of banging our head against a wall for no reason. So, okay, focusing on things within your control. No matter how big of a crappy match you have, no matter how bad your injury is, no matter what failure happens, what success happens, what you will always have a level of control over is how you're thinking about that situation. So think about it like this, just to kind of illustrate the importance and the power of the mind, is whoever's watching this, put yourself right next to me. We could be in the same situation at the same time, watching the same thing take place. Maybe it's, maybe we're a tag team, we go through a match, we both have a terrible match. I could choose to look at that match and go, yep, that was bad, here's how I'm gonna get better. And I'm gonna feel a little cranky about it, I'm gonna feel down about it, but then you might look at it and go, that was the worst freaking match I've ever had, I suck at wrestling, I hate this is so hard, I'm away from my family, my body's beat up, this sucks. And then you go down this emotional negative rabbit hole, right? And so the idea is it's not situations, it's not people, it's not places, it's not things that make us feel a certain way and react a certain way. It's how we think about those things that make us feel a certain way, right? So that just goes to show that you have control over your thoughts, and therefore you get to choose how you move forward with the information that you're presented with. So when you're dealing with these failures, again, life, wrestling in general, it's up to you about how you want to proceed with that. Like, for example, you'll hear me talk about Devin a lot, and you'll probably see him on here at some point, maybe a lot of points. Early on in our tag career, we've been tagging for like 2.5 years pretty consistently now. And so early on in those matches, a lot of stuff didn't go as well as we wanted it to. And we were frustrated. We had a lot of frustration. Thankfully, we had a lot of great supporters around us giving us feedback and coaching us along, but it still sucks when you don't perform, when you don't execute as well as you wanted to. And so what we would do, we would sit there kind of commiserating with each other, and we would say, okay, what are 3 things that went well that we want to keep and maintain? What are 3 things that we need to get the hell out of here and never do again and improve for next time? And again, that's us making the choice of how do we want to use this failure to grow, instead of sitting there and being resentful for the people who gave us feedback and going like, they don't know what they're talking about. Those guys they don't get us. No, that's selfish, and that's not me and us looking in the mirror and going like, we could have done better. How are we going to get better? And please help us do that. Give us some insight on telling us what we don't know and how to improve on that. And I still do that, and we still do that to an extent even now. It's been 2.5 years, and we've gotten a lot better, and yet we both realize there's a mountains to climb as far as getting better and learning new things. And so both of us share a similar mindset it's a growth-related mindset, and there's that mental toughness. We're getting much better at dealing with the failures, and with that comes just this like ability to look in the mirror and go, yes, I screwed up. Yes, this could have been better, and here's what I'm going to do about it. Versus what I said a minute ago, they don't get it, the person we wrestled sucked, the crowd was terrible, whatever. No, look in the mirror, Focus on things that you can control and calm this little guy down over here that's trying to get you to look at everyone else but yourself. Because at the end of the day, you can control yourself, you can control your thoughts, and if you are able to do that, if you're able to fail and then grow from it, that's resilience. If you're able to fail and sit there and analyze and get better for next time, that's toughness. And if you're able to sit there and listen to your mentors or people you trust give you constructive feedback, then you're going to be at a whole different level than someone who can't take that constructive feedback. And so that's something I'm not saying that it's in wrestling in particular that you have to have been an athlete before to be successful in wrestling. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I have seen is people who have a background in athletics, generally speaking, are a little bit ahead in this game because they've had a lifetime before of coaches telling them that they suck and telling them they need to get better. And so they're used to hearing that constructive feedback. And then when you continue on in sports or wrestling and you're able to take that and continue to grow from it, that builds confidence, and that builds confidence in yourself so that it's easier to hear those things when they come in. So I hope this has been fairly easy to follow, and I think the takeaway points that I want you guys to get from this is no matter what anyone does to you, no matter what happens, you always have control over your thoughts and what you want to do with the information that you've been presented with. Look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and control what you can control. And I think those are at least a good starting point and a really give you a really strong foundation in the areas of mental toughness, resilience. And they're so important in professional wrestling, again, because you're guaranteed failures, you're guaranteed things that are not going to go your way, you're guaranteed to get hurt at some point if you're around long enough. So learning to have this mental toughness and work through it, so helpful, so important. And I hope you got a little bit out of it. Again, I'm going to try to release one of these every Sunday, and I've got 5 on the docket. Again, if you go back to that intro video, I kind of outlined the different topics. But please, again, if you heard things that you thought were interesting and you want me to expand on, leave a comment, reach out to me, and I can either expand in the comments or make whole separate videos. So with that, I'm out.